Right, what's happening, people? Welcome back to the Joey Knight podcast. Today, once again, I'm very lucky to be joined, back by popular demand, by Dan.
Easy
Dan,
now.
what's happening, mate?
All right, not too bad, mate. Not too bad.
So the last time we spoke, Arsenal were high-flying, top of the league, couple of points cushion as well, with I think maybe a couple of games in hand even. And I was very much in the camp as a neutral when it comes to this title race, being I'm a Chelsea fan. This was Arsenal's sewn up, and it was Arsenal's to lose at that point. But inevitably, the steam train that is Manchester City have gone through the gears like they do. They're like a boxer when he smell blood, you know what I mean? They will get the finish more or less more often than not. And now it does look increasingly unlikely that Arsenal will lift the Premier League title. But stranger things have happened. It looked increasingly unlikely in, 2012 when City won that title?
Yeah. Last game, wasn't it, against QPR? Yeah. Last game, wasn't it, against QPR?
It can happen. These things can happen.
Yeah.
It's just the City we've come to know, and for myself, definitely not love. But, Pep City, they don't really slip up with these things, not in domestic or, on homeland. So as an Arsenal fan now, what are you thinking? Is there hope? Are you just hoping you can win your games? What's the emotions?
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, I think you've got to be hopeful. At this stage of the season, obviously, God willing, we put in a result against Newcastle tomorrow. Yep. And then it's only a point difference with 4 games left to go, 3 games left to go, whatever it is. Yeah, you got hope. You got kind of hope in every sort of, remaining game that something's going to happen. And as I say, City could drop points. Can't see them losing. But, a draw is favourable for us.
You need them to drop points in 2 separate games.
Two separate games,
if you were to win every game.
Yeah, so I think now, as it stands today, I think we're level on games.
Right.
So it's 34 games each. Obviously, we play tomorrow, then we've played a game more. So obviously, we're always going to be ahead of them, in that respect. I don't know if it'll ever level out. But obviously, last game of the season, we could be going into it where, if they do drop a point, we need them to drop 2 because goal difference wise, we're not anywhere near.
As an optimistic Arsenal fan that's trying to maybe talk their hopes into reality, what are the games that City drop points in? Because the one for me is Everton that City could drop a point in, and that's mad to say when I'm looking at whatever. But City don't have the most favourable record against Everton, and obviously
kind
Everton
of
will
like a Boga team, innit? The last few
and they'll have stuff to play for. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're not going to... I can't see Everton being out of it by the last day. That relegation race is going to go on to the last day if everything we've watched so far is anything to go by. So if we're counting Everton as one of them, what's the other game there that you're looking at? Because to me, we're recording this at the time of recording. This is going to go out later. At the time of recording this 2-0 City against Leeds. To me, new manager bounce, Big Sam Allardyce, as some call him. that was the game to me where I was sort of thinking okay, maybe a draw.
I think last week when City played Fulham, I think Fulham put a good account of themselves in. I think that was the game where you were kind of hoping if, even if it ends 1-1, Fulham were doing well enough. And then obviously, spectacular strike for I can't remember who scored it. Was it Alvarez or someone who scored?
Yeah.
Make it 2-1. They were just unlucky on the day. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, so, Leeds, I was kind of hoping, fingers crossed, that they weren't going to do it. But yeah, you say Everton, I'll agree with you on Everton because obviously they need to get out of trouble. And usually you find that teams down at the bottom, they've got one sort of special result left in them, and that'll be the one. The other game that I keep saying to all my friends and other Arsenal fans I speak to is Brighton. Because Brighton are in that sort of top half of the table now. Potentially, I think, if memory serves me correctly, that they could qualify for Europe.
Yeah, Brighton. Well in with a chance now. They beat United.
So well in with a chance of qualifying for Europe. So their season's not done. So they're going to want to sort of put on a performance. And, I've put Liverpool to the sword a couple of times this season. I think they've really played well. So I would say those are the 2 games where I'm looking at it and I'm thinking Everton and Brighton. But other than that, City they're not going to lose to any of those teams. But I could see maybe, dropping a couple of points here and there against those 2. But it's a hope, which, you just got to keep going as a
It's the
football
hope
fan.
that kills you, mate.
That's it. I said that earlier. It's the hope that kills you. As soon as I see Man City 1-0 up, I was thinking, after 20 minutes, Leeds are doing all right.
Yeah.
Bang.
A lot of Arsenal fans might say it didn't all go wrong. We were never expected. I personally didn't put Arsenal in my top 4 prediction at the start of the season.
Yep.
I'm guessing maybe you did yourself. Obviously, after what happened with the sort of end of season capitulation, maybe under Arteta last year, where Spurs nipped you to it, if you want to call it that. I didn't see him getting into the top 4 this season, sort of thing. So a lot of Arsenal fans will say, well, it didn't all go wrong. We've massively overachieved, and you have. But surely expectations change halfway through a season, and there would have been a point when quietly to themselves, Arsenal fans were sitting there, maybe not wanting to jinx it, maybe not wanting to say it, but thinking, right, this league's ours. If that was the case, where did it go wrong? For me, it was the 3 draws.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, I think before all of that happened, I think we had like an international break. We were 8 points clear. So I think probably around maybe that time, a lot of fans were then sort of like, our proper supporters were thinking, do you know what, we got this. As you say, massively overachieved from, I think if we'd have gone back and spoken to all these people now saying, oh yeah, we're definitely going to win the league. Everyone was probably at that time thinking, we got to get into Europe, got to get into the top 4, however we do that. But for me personally, I think sort of after the Villa game, after the sort of Bournemouth game, you're thinking, right, got to start believing now. Do you know what I mean? There's an energy behind the supporters. I mean, the Emirates now is somewhere, it's completely different to maybe what I saw going there maybe 5-6 years ago.
Yeah.
It was a very negative, toxic place, quiet place. Now it's completely different. Everyone's up off their seats. You got the guys at the Ashburton Army doing their thing. I like that. I think it's good. It's injected a bit of energy in there, and sort of like the team and the supporters are kind of merged at the same time. But yeah, I mean, in terms of where it's gone wrong, the Liverpool game was disappointing. I think you're 2-0 up at Anfield. You've got to see the game out. But then again, they're a top team. It is Anfield.
They've got that 12th man, like you just mentioned, the support.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, I don't know. I've never really bought into the sort of...
I think when it's going well for them.
Yeah.
I mean, I always look at support and I'm like, the Geordies up at St James's Park, man, like it was like you were saying, bit of a toxic environment, whatever. And then when that takeover happened, even before they started winning games, and I'm not in attendance, I'm watching it on the TV and I can feel the energy through the TV. I'm like, fucking hell, this support's making a big difference.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So
that's it. And it does make a difference, obviously, when the supporters are behind players, I guess.
Support-wise, then this is the best one since you've moved in there.
I would say so. For me, I've been going since we've gone to the Emirates. Obviously, I'm a massive lover of Highbury. That for me was, if they could have ever extended on that, that would have been the thing. But we've gone into a new place.
Should buy one of the flats.
Mate, I can just about afford my petrol. Do you know what I mean? So, but yeah, no, it's definitely one of the best seasons for me. I mean, I've managed to get to like a game this season, which was against Liverpool. Last season I was getting like loads of games and whatever, but this year you can just tell it, and the way that the supporters are talking to each other, it's a positive thing. So we don't, that lot that we dare not speak their name. No one's buying into that no more because it's now a positive thing. But going back to the results, as I say, Liverpool, Anfield, you can kind of expect that. All right, we go 2-2.
There's a result that people probably feel in a little bit of a negative way about, and it was a game that I was always worried for Arsenal. If you as a Chelsea fan, if you could say you were worried, but the game against Everton. That game that you lost, was it 1-0 against Everton?
Yeah.
Header from a corner, wasn't it? I remember.
Yeah.
So that game, you got the new manager bounce, yeah?
Yeah.
And I believe the new manager bounce is a real thing. Now, what I don't believe is more often than not, I think statistically you could get it up and you could go, well, no, actually, more often than not, it isn't a fact that the new manager bounce happens every time. So it's not the fact that it is, but then if you look at it in correlation to the form the team is in before that new manager comes in, that new manager bounce is a real thing. Sean Dyche is a class manager, and I think all of us are sat here scratching our heads a little bit at the fact that Everton are still down there, because when they got Dyche in and they won that game against you in Dyche's first match, it was like, yeah, well, Everton are fine.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, from that one, I expected them to kick on. I would probably say, yeah, okay, losing to Everton, it was disappointing. But You're going to lose games during the course of the season.
Of course.
We were, just back off the World Cup shortly after the World Cup season just started up again. It's one of them things. For me, the game where it still sticks with me now is the West Ham one.
Yep.
That's the one where I came away from that game, and I think I've had a sort of a horrible feeling since that game, where I've just like, we fucked it here. We've not done well.
I watched that game, and when it went 2, and obviously it's easy to say you're 2-0 up inside the first 15 minutes or something. Yeah. When it went 2, I remember sitting there thinking, "God, this could be 6."
Yeah, and that's the
way you were playing.
Yeah, that's the way we were playing. And then I'm not going to put what I'm going to say next is probably going to enrage a lot of people, but again, we're going to speak about one aspect of the refereeing, and Declan Rice handball. Thomas Partey makes a mistake. He should really deal with that. But as a clear handball, the play's allowed to continue. The penalty was not a penalty, in my opinion. The geezer's already going down. So they get that. So I think then that changes the momentum of the game as well. But we then also have to remember is Saka has the opportunity to score a penalty.
Yeah.
He misses. It happens. I'm not going to blame the guy for doing that.
He can be forgiven for missing a penalty.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's had a phenomenal season.
Yeah.
And I mean, from that point, though, I think when that final whistle went, I think that's probably the most where I thought, oh, do you know what? I mean, even when we lost to City a couple of weeks ago, I didn't even come away from that game thinking like, oh, like raging like I normally would.
That's the thing about if I was an Arsenal fan right now, why I would be a little bit sour. Not a little bit sour, I would be, I know myself, because if it was Chelsea we were talking about, it'd be very sour. The reason I would be is I'd be like, we could have lost to Everton, we could have drew to Liverpool, and we could have lost to City, and we still could have won this fucking league, man.
Could be. And this is the other thing I was thinking about it on the way over here is like, if we were talking today and City were now 8 points clear, for example, for me, in my head, there's a switch that just goes, right, it's done. We're going to get Champions League. It's been a decent season. I've seen players develop and whatever. But like any football fan across the country, when your team is like 5 or 6 games away from lifting the trophy, them little things do sort of gnaw at you. You're like, oh, if only. But it's only going to be a learning curve for the players.
Of course.
Do you know what I mean? I mean, the way that we folded last season, and we did fold, again, down to, player burnout and injuries as well. And I think probably the same's happening a little bit here. Saka he's been immense. Odegaard's been immense. The loss of Saliba, that does make a difference. But I think if you look at how many times Arteta's actually rotated the squad over the course of the season, we've pretty much played with the same 11.
Yeah.
You can only do that for so long before the legs start getting tired. And mental tiredness as well. It's like trying to raise yourself every single time. Okay, they're professionals, they get paid X, Y, and Z. But at the same time, they're just human beings.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You can't raise your level all the time. Somebody's going to have a dip, somebody's not. And then obviously what we're seeing now is that do we have enough on the bench to say like, right, if you're having a bit of a dip in form, can we put someone else in?
Yeah.
And I think in key areas, I think that's probably where our downfall has been this season. But having said all of that, 4 games left, big one against Newcastle tomorrow. Who knows? We just got to keep going until it is impossible for us to do it.